All right, what's up, y'all? What's up? This is our first episode of the People's Table. I am excited to be here today. If you don't know me, my name is Julian Beaudion. I am the former Democratic nominee for the United States Senate here in South Dakota. And I am, again, excited to welcome you to the People's Table. Look, so if you can hear me, give me a thumbs up or something like that. I am a self-producer. I'm producing this thing myself. So I got my backup handy here, my phone just ready to go. So if you guys can hear me, give me a thumbs up and we'll keep this thing rolling. So if you can't, drop that also in. If you cannot hear me clearly, at least drop that also maybe in the comments. Just let me know. We'll make some adjustments and some tweaks as we move along. Again, bear with me. This thing is live, and I'm also a self-producer. Have no background in producing, but our voice needs to be heard here in South Dakota. So we're doing this thing. For the first time in a long time, I'm not asking you for your vote. I'm a voter and I have questions. I'm also excited again to announce the first episode of the People's Table with myself, Julian Beaudion. And this is not going to be another political show where everybody agrees with each other. It's not going to have repeated talking points. We're not going to tell you what to think. We just want to have real conversations with real people about the things that actually matter to us. So for the first episode, I'm going to talk to you about something that's close to home, of course. And again, as a voter, I think it's really important. I'm going to just check the comments again. I don't have any comments yet. Give me just a thumbs up or tell me in the comments if you are able to hear me, because again, I just want to make sure the sound is working properly. But again, I'm a voter, just like many of you are. And so I have questions about the people that are asking to represent us, particularly in the United States Senate. I've been on the other side of that question a lot. I've been able to travel this entire state, stood on the debate stage, answered tough questions from media, from many of you, asked people for their trust, and experience, of course, firsthand what it's like to run for the United States Senate. But now I get to pull up a chair on the other side of the table. So we'll talk about the issues that I believe should be that the candidates should be addressing, maybe some questions that the voters deserve to have answered. I'll talk about what I've learned from my own experience. I'll also talk a little bit about what leadership should look like in this moment, in my opinion. And most importantly, I want to be able to hear from you, the voters. What do you want from your next United States Senator? So, of course, we are live here on Facebook. We're also live on YouTube. As we're going through this process, make sure you are bringing your questions. Pull up a chair, grab a drink, do whatever you need. This is our wind down time. It's time to just chill, relax, and let's talk a little bit of politics. So, again, we got a few people watching here. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Give me a thumbs up or a comment if you can hear. I haven't had anyone comment as of yet. I'm checking the comments here, but just tell me if you can hear me or not. And then we'll just keep the ball rolling. Hopefully you can. For those of you who have just joined us, welcome to the People's Table. My name again is Julian Beaudion, and I am the former Democratic nominee for the United States Senate here in South Dakota. This is actually something that I've been thinking about doing for a long time, even prior to announcing my Senate campaign. And so tonight we're finally doing it. So many of you are watching on Facebook and YouTube. Welcome in again. If you have not yet, please like, share, follow the pages so that you can get updates from the things that we are going to be doing or posting here as leaders in our state, leaders in our community. But also, again, make sure you have questions and comments ready to go throughout this entire process, because it's going to be an engaging conversation with us. This is not my table, it's our table. And so I want to be able to see who's sitting at the table with us tonight. And I want to be able to hear from you. So here's how the idea behind this show started. I think we've made politics way too complicated, and we've definitely made some political conversations way too formal. So everything typically happens behind a podium, or there's talking points. Consultants are telling people what to do, what to say. But what I learned traveling this state is that some of the best conversations that I had didn't happen behind a podium or in front of a huge crowd. They happen sitting around the table sometimes over dinner, over coffee, maybe even a glass of whiskey. And so tonight I've poured myself a glass of whiskey. We're going to have this conversation. We're going to talk politics. Again, we're going to relax a little bit. We're going to engage with each other as voters, and we're going to ask the tough questions. Sometimes these questions or conversations might even come up late at night when you're talking with family members or talking to your partners. That's what I want this to be like, the people's table. We're going to talk about the issues. We're going to talk about the people. We're going to talk about candidates. Sometimes you're going to disagree with some of the things I say. Sometimes we're going to laugh. We might even cry on this show. You never know. But hopefully we're going to spend some time talking about the solutions, and we're going to do so together. That's one thing I want to make really clear about this entire thing. This is not just my table. This is our table. So it's really important that you engage and participate. And again, put your questions or your comments in the comment section. So when we get to that part of the show, we'll be able to interact a little bit more. So tell me if you disagree. Tell me if you think I'm completely wrong about something. Tell me if you think I'm right about something. It doesn't matter what you tell me. Just keep it respectful. Because again, later in the show, everyone's going to pull up a chair to the table and we're going to have this conversation together. So once again, grab whatever drink you have. This is kind of our intro section of the show. Grab whatever drink you have. Let's talk. And again, welcome to the People's Table. So before we talk politics tonight, I want to tell you again why I'm doing this. I think the why is important because if you followed me for any amount of time, you know that I have a pretty interesting journey, pretty interesting life. I've spent a good portion of my adult life in public service. I've worked in law enforcement, been a small business owner, have worked in nonprofits and different community organizations. I've also been involved in Democratic politics for quite a while. And most recently, of course, became the candidate for the United States Senate, the state nominee for the United States Senate. And that experience has taught me a lot about politics. But I think more importantly, I learned a lot about people. I learned what people actually care about and what politics is supposed to mean to people. But I also learned what some of these political insiders have spent their time and money and energy doing to make sure that the people are not heard. I have had the unique opportunity to sit across the table from people who are worried about things like healthcare. I've talked to folks worried about housing and childcare. I've been able to talk to farmers and small business owners. People don't wake up every morning thinking what happened in Washington, D.C. today. All of those folks that I talked to have never asked me that question. Hey, did you hear what happened in Washington, D.C. today? Did you hear about this in D.C.? That question never came up. But what people were wondering is, man, you're running for this office. How can you make sure that I afford groceries? How can you make sure I afford my medical bills? How can you make sure that I'm being able to afford a retirement after, this farming thing or whatever it is no longer for me, or I'm no longer capable of doing it? And so one of the biggest things that politics taught me is that we don't listen enough, which is one of the reasons why I did many of the town halls that we did. And it was really shocking to hear those conversations here in South Dakota. But one other thing that was even more surprising, and I think, maybe folks in South Dakota might not find this so surprising, but people agree on much more than our politics than I think politicians would have us believe. It was told to me during one of the town halls that, listen, if you put 10 people from this community around the table, Republicans, Democrats, independents, people who might not even care about politics, might not care about either party, and you ask them what they want, many of them will tell you the same thing. They'll tell you that they want their family to be safe. They'll tell you that they want decent opportunities. They will say that they want to be able to afford health care. Many of them might even say, listen, I want to just make sure that I'm put in a position to not lose everything because one thing goes wrong. And my family has been there too, which is, one of the reasons why I was able to connect with people on that type of level is because my family has gone through or currently is going through some of those same struggles and same obstacles that many of the folks in South Dakota are. So the questions that we ask today will be very, very valuable to the voters to make sure that we are getting answers and also to make sure that we're making the right choice when November comes to check whatever name we are checking in the ballot box. I want my government to work for me. We might disagree on how to accomplish some of those things, but disagreements matter. And I think sometimes we've forgotten that we are arguing with people who often want many of the same basic things that we do. Um, I know things can be frustrating. It was certainly frustrating on the campaign trail. There are some frustrating parts of politics, and we'll touch on that too. Such as money having too much influence in politics, or access being too much of an influence in politics, or even maybe political institutions such as the Republican Party or the Democratic Party becoming more interested in protecting their brand or themselves than challenging themselves to be better. And so too often, I think candidates are told by some of those institutions or people that, maybe they shouldn't talk about this one thing, or this, if you say this, it might upset a certain group of people. Or maybe things are not necessarily politically smart or the right thing to do in politics. That's not what I want this show to become. I am going to sit here and tell you what I think. That doesn't mean that I'm going to always be right. I also reserve the right to learn something new and challenge my mind. I actually think that's more of what we need in politics. But here's what gives me hope of moving to a better future. And you can call me naive if you want to, but I still have hope in people. From those conversations that I had traveling the state, the people that I met some incredible people. I met some hardworking people, folks in rural communities, folks in some of the larger cities, people that'll never be recognized on a large scale. Folks who are out there organizing and teaching and building businesses and running nonprofits, people who are out there running for local offices and helping their neighbors. These are the people that I believe build our community to be better today than it is yesterday, or than it was yesterday, or better for tomorrow than it is today. Listen, I also think, and this is more of a situation where I'm going to get a little bit vulnerable. I think that is what makes it so difficult for me as a former candidate to even walk away from a life of service, if you will. I told you earlier, I spent most of my adult life in some type of service to people, and this particular campaign has taught me so much more about what else I could be doing, or how much more we could work to help each other and build better communities and build a better state and build really a better country. And so, although this might look different than what you have seen from previous candidates who have either dropped out of races or lost races, I'm a different candidate. I'm a different person. I'm a different type of servant, and I am going to approach this situation much differently than you've ever seen before, because in my opinion, democracy is not something that politicians own, it's something that we own. And so instead of telling people what they should believe, I thought we need to build a place where we can actually talk about it ourselves. That's why we are here. And so now we can kind of get into the politics of things. And I want to throw maybe the first big question on the table. South Dakota is going to be electing, of course, another U.S. senator. We're going to be electing a U.S. senator here in November. And so for the first time in a while, I'm experiencing this election simply as a voter. As I said earlier, I'm now on the other side of the table, and we're being able to pose these same questions, some of these same questions that I was posed to the candidates that are out there now. And I think now, because that perception has changed a bit for me, it has caused me to think about things differently. And one of the things is, what do I actually want from someone asking for my vote? I'm not asking, what do I want from a Democrat? I'm not asking, what do I want from a Republican? I'm not asking about who's raised the most money, or even, who someone else is trying to tell me to vote for, or who someone else thinks can win an election. I'm asking what I believe is a more fundamental question in politics, and that is, what should we expect from someone who wants the privilege of representing us in the United States Senate? We have to remember that politics is about resources, and politicians are not our friends. And so when we think about the things that we want politicians to do or representatives to do, we have to think about the resources that, number one, they can create, and then number two, the resources that they are able to deliver to us. So I've come up with a few things, and then again, make sure you are throwing things in the comments. Here, let me check the comments right now to see if we got anything coming up. Let's see. All right, no comments yet. So make sure you are, again, thinking about some of the questions or comments that you might have as we continue. So I'm self-producing. That's why you got a little bit of a pause there. But if you're just joining us, welcome in. I appreciate you tuning in. We're having this conversation. Pull up a chair, grab yourself a drink. And listen, I'm not getting any money from the folks who delivered this. This is a pretty good drink, a 1792 small batch. So if you are interested in whiskey, that's what I'm sipping on tonight. I've come up with a few things that I think we should discuss about, what I personally want to see in a U.S. senator. And then again, make sure you put in the comments about the things that you want to see, and we'll revisit that whenever we pull up our seats to the table. The very first thing, it might seem trivial, might seem basic, but it's just showing up. Show up. And I don't mean just showing up during election time. I mean showing up all the time. Go where people are. Go to communities where everybody's not going to agree with you. Go to rural South Dakota. Go to reservations. Go into small businesses. Talk to workers. Our unions matter. Talk to the people who are not your donors. Show up not just to talk. Show up to listen. And that's probably the most valuable thing that I took away from our campaign, is that there were many times where I didn't speak as much as the other folks. And I took away so much from those experiences that I was able to build an entire policy platform based on the things that people wanted versus the things that I thought of, the ideas that I thought might benefit South Dakota. Now, do those ideas and those values matter? Absolutely they do. That's why you choose the person you do to run for an office like United States Senator. But what matters more are the values of the people. And so, listen, when I was traveling around the state, again, some of the most valuable conversations I had were not at the big political events. They were at the table conversations. It was just like a handful of people just waiting to be heard. People who thought maybe they had been forgotten. People who hadn't had representation in a long time. And it's my belief that you cannot represent people that you don't know. So get to know the people. Second thing is, tell me what you actually believe. I'm so tired of politicians, and I'm not talking about politicians even in this state or specifically in this state. I'm talking about politicians nationwide, going up and speaking for 5 or 10 minutes and somehow saying a lot and also saying absolutely nothing. Tell me what you believe. What are you going to do about healthcare? What are you going to do about housing? What about education? What about war, immigration? Let's talk about tribal sovereignty. Let's talk about civil rights. Talk about the economy. Talk about LGBTQ plus rights. Let's talk about all of those things, because those are the values that I believe in. And I want to make sure that the person who's running for that office not just shares all of the beliefs and the values, because they don't necessarily have to share those same beliefs and values, but they definitely should be in a position to where they fight for the values of everyone in this state. And one of the things that really frustrates me to no end is that we have so many politicians around this country just telling me what's wrong with the other person. I already know what's wrong with the other person. We're paying attention to this thing. You don't have to tell me, 3 and 4 times why to vote against someone. I want to know what you're going to do. I don't have to agree with you on everything, but I should know what I'm voting for. Not necessarily what I'm always voting against, or what or who I'm always voting against. All right. So the next thing is, I want a candidate that's going to talk about people's actual lives. This one's big for me, because if someone is out there working 2 jobs and they cannot afford rent, politics matters to them. If a farmer is out there watching, their input costs climb up super high while family farms are disappearing, and many of our family-owned farms here in South Dakota are struggling just to be able to live to the next day, politics matter to them. These are not abstract type policy debates, these are people's lives. People are depending on the policies that we are creating as politicians. So when someone is asking for my vote, I want to be able to hear how you are going to make my life better. Again, I don't want to hear anything about the other person. I want to hear about what you are going to do for me. Politics is about resources and opportunities. How are you going to be able to deliver the resource politically or from the government to us as voters? All right. So the next thing is, and this is another one here that I was actually, this is kind of a moment of pride for me. I was proud to be able to say that there were certain things that I was able to do in the campaign that disagreed with my own party politically or strategically, so to speak. And so I want a candidate that's going to show me that type of courage. Be willing to disagree with your own people, with your own party. I think this is one of the biggest tests of political courage, because it's really easy to criticize the other team, but it's really difficult to criticize your team. So what happens when your team is wrong? What happens? And I'll give you just a quick example of when I was running for office. One of the things that me and my team, this is kind of some inside baseball here for you, but my team and I really had a conversation for weeks about whether or not to accept an endorsement from President Biden. And ultimately, we did accept the endorsement, but I did so on what I feel was my terms, because I did not want to stray away from my values. And so I always have and still currently stand with the Palestinian people. And I didn't agree with some of the policies of the Biden administration. Now, because I did not agree with, a few of those policies, now those are heavy policies. Let's not get it twisted. Those are heavy concerns, heavy policies, heavy disagreements. But that doesn't mean that I disagree with everything that the Biden administration did. And because of that, we ultimately chose to, yes, accept the endorsement of the former president, while also standing on our values and calling out what we believe was wrong. That's the type of political courage I'm looking for in a candidate. That's the type of political courage, of course, that I tried to represent or spew off from our campaign and from our team as well. So just a quick story to kind of wrap that part up. The next thing, and this kind of ties in with everything we just talked about, is that I want a candidate to earn my vote. This might be the most important thing for me, because nobody, I don't care what political party you are in, nobody is entitled to your vote. And there's no political party that owns anybody's vote either. If you want to have people vote for you, you have to earn it. Give people something to believe in. Tell me what you are going to do, and then convince me that you are the right person to do it. All right. So those are the 5 things that I'm looking for in someone who's looking to represent me. And I know we kind of talked about the United States Senate with that, but that really spans across the board for all of these positions that we'll be voting for, not just in November but for years to come. All right, now I'm going to get into what I consider to be a pretty exciting part of our conversation today. I was playing around with a couple names of like the segment, and so this segment today, and it feels weird for me to even say this, like I'm this type of producer or whatever, but this segment is called "You Got a Minute?" So before we move on and get to some of the other maybe political type conversations, I want to ask you if you got just a minute to hear me out, because this is also important. Every week we'll be doing this session, this kind of breakout session of You Got a Minute, and I want to just take 1 minute of your time to be able to introduce you to someone who's already doing the work and shares my values and deserves a little bit more attention. Maybe it's someone who doesn't have a lot of attention, or maybe it's someone who I feel that does not have as much support as they have, or that they should have, excuse me. And so as I was thinking about, different folks to be able to prop up on this type of platform, I could not think of anyone better to start with than my good friend, my really good friend, Celestine Stagnant. And Celestine's running for the South Dakota State Senate over in District 27. This one here is personal for me, because I know Celestine. I know her heart. I know how deeply she cares about her community, and so she is running to create real economic opportunity and expanding vocational education, creating pathways to good paying jobs, and strengthening housing and local economies. She is also really passionate about making sure that families have the opportunity to do more than just survive. Um, but she's also fighting to make sure that we are protecting our land and protecting the water and protecting native rights, and the future that we are leaving behind for the next generation. That's the kind of leadership that I want to be able to highlight here at the People's Table. So here's where you come in. I'm gonna drop Celestine's donation link in the chat at some point whenever I'm able to do the producing thing. I'm gonna drop Celestine's donation link and her website in the chat. And so whatever you can do for her, please do that. Whether it's $5, $10, $25, doesn't matter. If you can't even donate that, because I understand times are so hard, then share her link with someone who can make that type of contribution, who can show that type of support to Celestine over in District 27. So listen, let's show her that she's not alone in doing this work. So Celestine, my friend, my really good friend, you always have a seat at the People's Table. Now we have to work to make sure we get you elected. So with that said, let's take a quick break. I'm going to drop that link into the chat. This break won't be any more than a minute, and then we'll come back and we'll answer some of the questions, or we'll highlight some of the comments in either Facebook or YouTube, and we'll kind of talk through some of your things. So give me 1 second. Here's the self-producer coming in, and we are on. All right, y'all, we are back. I think I got that link posted in there. I'm looking here on my Facebook feed on my backup, and I don't see it yet. I'll keep watching it. If the link is not there, I'll make sure that we get that link connected to make sure that y'all are able to support Celestine in her efforts to be elected as our next senator over in District 27. So Celestine, again, thank you for the work that you are doing. I really appreciate not just the work, but I really appreciate your friendship and the values that we are able to share here across the state. So listen, now is the time where we are pulling up a table. I am in the comments here, and I think I see one comment. Drop some comments or questions, whatever you may have in the chat. We'll get to those. If we only stick with this one comment, it's going to be a short show tonight. I planned for 45 minutes. We're at about 30 minutes or so, but we will continue. We will continue doing this hopefully each week so that we can have more and more folks gearing up to ask questions and to really be engaging in politics. So Tom has weighed in. He says, what do you think of the South Dakota Democratic Party's choice last cycle? These are small words, so bear with me. Last cycle to not get behind the abortion issue. For me, it was a huge mistake. And if I never heard any sort of debrief from the party, and so he's never heard any type of debrief from the party about whether or not the party regretted it or thought it was important. You guys can read the rest of that comment on your own, but I'll address that very, very directly for you, Tom. I don't know if there's necessarily any type of regret from the South Dakota Democratic Party, and I will be clear that I am not speaking on behalf of the party. I'm an individual. I don't represent the voice of the party whatsoever. Don't claim to be the voice of Democrats. I certainly am a progressive who does not mind speaking on abortion myself, and making sure that women across our state has the right to choose, along with their doctors, what's best for them. I have also been personally very vocal as I traveled the state about women's healthcare issues here in South Dakota, and how we are down to one specialized OBGYN clinic in rural South Dakota. And that's because of some of those budget cuts from the current Trump administration. Those are the things that we need to be able to reinvest in. We need to make sure that we are giving women access to health, and access, to healthcare, and also access to affordable options around our state. There are some areas in our state, and it's so unbelievable. It's so irresponsible of our government and our government officials right now, that some areas in our state, women have to travel upwards of 2 hours just to be able to get to a specialized healthcare clinic to meet with their doctors. That's unacceptable. That's not leadership. That is irresponsible leadership, in my opinion. And so while I can't speak for the South Dakota Democratic Party and what they have chose to either say or not say on the topic, I feel very comfortable in stepping into what I believe should be happening, and that's reinvesting in women's health care here all across the state, and not just all across the state, all across this country. Because from a federal position like the United States Senate, your responsibility is to make sure that everyone in this entire country, not just folks in South Dakota or folks in Minnesota, not just regionally, everyone across this country has access to affordable and clear and cut good health care. That's another reason why I was also someone who was fighting for universal health care. Those are the type of progressive initiatives that I believe in. And, kind of circling back to what we talked about before, those are also some of the things that I would be looking for in a candidate, someone who shares my type of progressive values. I would love to see universal health care pass across our country, even if we had to start with some type of public option to get universal health care passed. No one's even having the conversation about it right now. So we need to start there. And we need to make sure that we're protecting our most vulnerable communities in doing so. And right now in South Dakota, one of our most vulnerable communities in the healthcare atmosphere are our women. So that would be just, again, directly from me. I do not speak on behalf of the South Dakota Democratic Party. Don't pretend to speak on behalf of the party. I am certainly a progressive who wants to speak on the values that I believe in. So I appreciate that question. And so if you have any more questions, please make sure you are dropping those in. So Tom is the only one weighing in on questions and comments right now so far that I can see. I'm gonna cross over real quick on my phone and check YouTube and see if we have maybe any questions coming in on the YouTube account. And if not, we can give you the rest of your evening. Again, this is a live show, so we are not beholden to any type of time. We're just here to have conversation. We're here to sit around the table. First, let me take a sip because we are relaxing and talking politics tonight. So if you're just joining us, again, welcome. I appreciate you joining the People's Table. We're going to try to do this every single week. Each Thursday is what we're going to try to do. Oh, here we go. PJ, if men didn't have a say on this, it would be fine. Yeah, I mean, for sure, PJ, I understand that. My wife and I have actually had conversations about that as well. I understand 100% what you're saying. When you talk about the thing that's right for your entire family, I do believe that there's importance in having conversations. And so my wife and I have certainly had that. Now, at the end of the day, it's still not going to be my decision. I certainly would have an opinion, and I certainly would my wife makes it very comfortable for me to be able to share my opinion on some of the things that maybe she is going through, and vice versa. Anything that I'm going through, I'm able to share my my issues or my healthcare situations with my wife, and she has opinions, because those situations don't just impact the one person; it does impact everyone around you. And so yes, I agree with you 100%. Men should not have the final say, but it depends on your family values. It depends on your atmosphere, and you have to step into whatever is best for you. Which is why I'm a firm believer, especially when it comes to women's health care, is that the final say is between the woman and their doctor. Yes, I can certainly share my opinions. We're all welcome to share as many opinions as we want to, but sometimes those opinions don't matter as much as the one that is actually being impacted directly by the final say. So appreciate that comment, PJ. We got a YouTube comment that just came in, and it says, "What do you think the minimum wage should be?" All right, this is a good one. I have not had the opportunity to really talk about minimum wage in a long time. So early on in the campaign, April of last year, we had a conversation. It was at one of the town halls, and it was certainly about minimum wage. But man, it's been more than a year since I think someone has asked a question about that. So thank you. I am of the opinion that we should have more of a working or living wage and not necessarily a minimum wage. And my reason for saying that is because the cost of living in each state is different. And so, each state should be able to put up whatever type of living wage is comparable to the cost of living in that state. The reason I don't think there's a minimum that needs to be a minimum wage is because, whatever the minimum wage is here in South Dakota is not going to be reflective of what a working wage or a living wage in a state like California or New York or Illinois would be. And so if we had some type of federal minimum wage like that, then you would have organizations taking advantage of whatever that wage is, and you'd have more people living in poverty. And so I believe in more of a living wage than I do a minimum wage. And I think we have to open up that conversation about what a living wage in each state looks like. So those are my thoughts on that. Katie has chimed in. Katie, I see you said thank you. I really appreciate you for tuning in. Your question is, how do you think we should bring back servant leadership or make sure the candidates running I'm guessing you meant are ultimately running for the right reasons for the people rather than their own agenda or their pockets. I don't know if we can necessarily guarantee that that's going to happen. Our country is full of selfish people who want to be self-promoted, who want power. I think that the real power belongs in the hands of us, the people, the voters. And so it is certainly up to us to be able to choose whoever that person is that best reflects our values. To be able to say who a servant leader is, though, earlier in the show, we talked a little bit about one of the things that I look for in a candidate is someone who's not just going to show up during election season. I want someone that's showing up all the time. I want someone that's traveling the state, talking to farmers, not trying to get elected. I want someone who is just out there serving the people every single day, and their next step in servant leadership maybe is politics. That's one of the reasons why I got into this race, is because I felt like that was the next step in my type of leadership, in the values that I perceive to be valuable in a good leader, particularly in the seat of the United States Senate. And so, what you hopefully have seen from me is that I don't just show up during election season. This is not new for me. I've worked in many different nonprofits. I've wore the uniform as a state trooper for 13 and a half years. I was a state nominee for the United States Marshal. I've done the things that I believe were really suiting my values as a leader across our entire state. And so ultimately, it wasn't a question for me about why you want to run for the United States Senate. It was just my next step in serving the people. And so whatever that looks like in the future, I'm not 100% sure. But I promise you this: as you can tell, we're not going away, and our voice is certainly not going away. We have created this platform called the People's Table. We want to make sure that we are keeping the voice of the people first, not the voice of politicians first. And so, yeah, I'm no longer in the race, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop serving people, because what matters to me is that people continue to serve. And it will be irresponsible of me as a leader not to do exactly what I believe others should be doing. So, maybe that didn't answer your question directly, but I hope it answered it enough to say how I feel about, those types of situations. So again, thank you so much for that question, and I appreciate you tuning in. We got just a few more minutes. Let's see. I see Jen put a comment in. I'm sorry, y'all. Listen, I told y'all I'm this is, first off, this is live, but then also I'm a self-producer tonight. So like I got this light shining in my eye as I'm looking at you, but then the comments are coming in and the words are like this big. So we're trying to get this figured out. So let's see. Jen, thank you for tuning in. Let's see. Continuing to lean into our values despite the bullying. Yeah. Listen, politics can certainly get nasty. Should never be dangerous. And one of the things that my family and I had to weigh as we were making the decision to back out of this race is, first off, we did not have, when we made the decision to drop out, we did not have all of the answers. For many of you who don't know, my family suffered a house fire right at the tail end of my campaign. And we didn't have all the answers. We didn't know any of the conclusions of any of the investigations at the time. We didn't know what the cause of the fire was. We actually still don't know what the cause of the fire was. We've started to get some new information around the investigation. I can clearly and confidently and also very happily say that there's the Sioux Falls Police Department and the fire investigators have said that there's no criminal activity involved with this fire. So we are so pleased to be able to, and I know I probably shouldn't have said that because I spoke with a couple folks yesterday. I think the PD is going to make some type of statement here fairly soon. But listen, we're happy that there's no criminal activity afoot there. But politics can get nasty. Politics can be personal, but they should never be dangerous. And going back to what I said earlier, because we did not have all of the answers and one thing was leading to the next, that was leading to the next, and there was so much pressure and so much harassment, and then the fire happened, we had to take all of the precautions necessary to make sure that our family was safe. And so we did that. We will still continue to serve. We will not be intimidated out of politics. Our voice will not be shut down. But now we are turning the corner. We're moving forward. We're trying to figure out what's best for us, but we're also trying to figure out how we can best continue to serve our state and our community. And so whatever's next, we'll make that conversation. We'll make that decision together, not just as a family, but as a community. That's one of the things that I've prided myself in being able to do, is to sit down with folks around me, Jen being one of them, one of my advisors, just to be able to give me a sense of clarity on whatever the next direction of service is. These are not decisions that we take lightly. It's certainly not a decision that I make on my own. And so I have received a lot of support and a lot of grace and a lot of love from folks after dropping out of the race. And so I love you all too. And we will just, again, continue to serve the state the best way we can with your help and with your support. So thank you, Jen, for all that you do. I know you were saying thank you to me, but thank you for all that you do as well for our community. All right, so we got 2 more minutes. I'm going to take this last question here. This last question is, what can we do to protect small family farms from big ag? All right, this is a really, really good question. As I mentioned earlier on in the conversation, man, I spoke with so many small family-owned farms around the state as I was traveling, and many of them are facing some type of bankruptcy by the end of the year. I actually spoke with the banker up in Britton, an ag banker up in Britton, South Dakota, and we were at risk at one point. I'm not sure if the numbers are still the same, but at one point we were at risk of having 40% of our family-owned farms in South Dakota go bankrupt at the end of the year. There was one particular thing that he mentioned, and then I continued to hear it from farmers across the state as we continue to travel, that could have put them in a different situation and not have to even look at bankruptcy as an option. And those are CDFI funding initiatives. So the CDFI funding, if you're not familiar with that, is small community banks are able to give community loans to small family-owned farms or small businesses to make sure that they have the stability to roll over from year to year. That entire fund, not just in South Dakota, but across our nation, was wiped out by Doge. So there's $0 available for that type of gap funding that farmers used to rely on. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars wiped out because of that. That is hurting our family-owned farms. So the very first thing that many of those farmers said that they that would be helpful to them is number one, get rid of the tariffs. That's always first and foremost. Number two is farmers still need reliable and stable resources from our community banks. And one of the ways to be able to do that was through CDFI. And so bring back those types of resources to be able to help our farmers in the interim when these input costs are incredibly high and we have war that's really hurting our trade, our international trade, and we got the tariffs that are being put on by our own president right here at home. Things are just not in a stable condition for our small family-owned farms to be able to survive. And because of that, it puts them at risk, not just for the bankruptcy, but it puts them at risk to be eaten up or swallowed up by some of those larger corporate type farms. So we are a minute over. I told you I would take about 45 minutes of your time. We've taken 46 minutes. If I didn't get to your question tonight, join us next week. And we will make sure that we get to your questions there. What I actually might do is if you have questions, I'll probably hop in the comments and just answer those questions as well. So again, thank y'all so much for all of your time and your effort and your support. We will continue to serve this community as it has served us. We are so appreciative as a family of being able to be a part of this community, being able to continue to step into a political role like this. And I am so grateful that I have the opportunity to use a platform like this to support your voice and your issues and talk about the things that matter to all of us as voters. So let's continue on in this conversation. Thank you for grabbing a seat at the People's Table, and we will talk to you next time.